20 facts about the Sumerian demigod Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is usually considered a legendary character from Sumerian mythology, although many authors and scholars argue he may in fact have lived thousands of years ago. We're talking about before the flood, the deluge of Noah. He's referred to as the first hero on earth and is a central figure in the epic of Gilgamesh. As an important character that he is, in this article we explore some of the most interesting facts about Gilgamesh that help understand who this ancient hero was and what legacy he left behind. I have a playlist on Gilgamesh, and I will leave that in the description box below for you. Now, these facts, according to the Sumerian king list, remember the Sumerian kings used to live tens of thousands of years. According to the Sumerian king list, Gilgamesh, son of the goddess Ninsun, and the priest king Lugalbanda, the king of the district of Kubal, and fifth king of the city Uruk, Erech in the biblical texts, current Warqa in Iraq, around the year 2750 BC. He most likely did rule between 2800 and 2500 BC and was posthumously deified. Gilgamesh succeeded King Lugalbanda. He reigned for 126 years and left the throne to his son Ur-Nungal, who ruled for 30 years. The Sumerian king list spans for over 241,000 years before the Great Flood, as we know, the Great Flood of the time of Noah. Gilgamesh, who was king of Uruk, is usually referred to as a human being, but he's said to have been 2/3 god and 1/3 human. It's believed that Gilgamesh was blessed by the gods with strength, courage, and beauty, and is referred to as the strongest and the greatest king who ever existed. The first researchers who studied the Sumerian language read his name erroneously as Izdubar. He's perhaps best known as being the protagonist of the poem of Gilgamesh, also referred to as the Epic of Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh is considered the greatest literary work, oldest in the world, and is placed among the earliest known literary writings in the world. The work originated as a series of Sumerian legends and poems in cuneiform script dating back to the early 3rd or late 2nd millennium BC. Historians agree that the Epic of Gilgamesh exerted substantial influence on both the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Epic of Gilgamesh follows the son of the goddess Nisun, who traveled with his friend Enkidu, and as they begin a series of perilous quests and adventures. Gilgamesh, who was an irresistible king, slept with newlywed women of Uruk, and this made the people unhappy. In turn, the goddess of creation, Aruru, creates a mighty wild man named Enkidu, a rival in strength to Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh and Enkidu fight a great battle, where Gilgamesh comes out as the winner. Gilgamesh spares Enkidu's life, and they become friends. Together, Gilgamesh and Enkidu go on adventures. They defeat Humbaba, the East Semitic name for Huwawa, and the Bull of Heaven. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Enkidu dies of a disease which was sent down by the gods as a punishment. This makes Gilgamesh afraid of his death. He decides to visit the sage Utnapishtim, who was a survivor of the Great Flood. Gilgamesh searches for immortality. Gilgamesh does not manage to find the secret to immortality. He repeatedly fails the trial set before him and eventually returns home to Uruk and realizes that immortality is beyond his reach. Despite the fact that there is evidence in ancient works of literature of his existence, scholars have not found any contemporary mention of Gilgamesh anywhere. Gilgamesh is referred to as a ruler by King Enmebaragesi of Kish, a known historical figure who's believed to have lived near or during Gilgamesh's lifetime. The Tumal inscription, a 34-line historiographic text composed during the reign of Ishbi era, credits Gilgamesh with building the walls of Uruk. Quote, "For a second time, the Tumal fell into ruin. Gilgamesh built the Numunbara of the house of Enlil, Ur-Lugal, the son of Gilgamesh, made the Temal preeminent, brought Ninlil to the Tumal," end quote. There are fragments of an epic text from the Me Turan, or modern Tel Hadad, which indicates that at the end of his life, Gilgamesh was buried under the riverbed. This is by Humans Are Free, Janice Friedman. Now, after the epic, Gilgamesh was in 2/3 god and 1/3 human, according to Farrell 2017. He was distinguished to obtain lost knowledge from the antediluvian world, according to the epic of Gilgamesh. So he journeyed to Mount Hermon in the Levant, North Israel. To do so, he journeyed to Mount Hermon, mount between Syria, Lebanon, and the Anti-Lebanon mountain range, and according to the Apocrypha book of Enoch, Enoch 6, verse 1 to 6, Mount Hermon was a place where a group of fallen angels, the Watchers, descended to earth, whereas in the Mesopotamian tradition it's known as the dwelling place of the Anunnaki, quote unquote, those of royal blood, or in other words, sons of God. Are those the same? So who were the Anunnaki? The true identity of the Anunnaki is to be found in the Eastern tradition of the demigods spawned by crossbreeding between divine beings and mortal females at Mount Hermon. These beings are often associated with knowledge from the world before a great deluge and were later assigned roles in the underworld. This would suggest that they should properly be compared to the Nephilim and the fallen sons of God brought up in Genesis 6, the Genesis giants. Sons of God, in the Hebrew Bible, the expression sons of God appears 4 times and always refers to angelic beings. Only with the coming of Christianity, the title of the Son of God has been described to Jesus. But now, universal myths. In almost all ancient cultures, there are 3 recurring myths telling about ancient gods who once descended from heaven to take for themselves human women, about giants that were the offspring of the sexual relationships between God and earthly daughters, and about a great cataclysm. We're here, in many cases, we're talking about the universal myths of the flood, the great flood, the deluge of Noah's time, that destroyed the empire of the gods and their children. Ancient traditions, alongside with biblical texts, also give reference to the way the sons of God were punished for their misdeeds. Noteworthy that the word translated as hell in is actually in Greek called Tartarus, referring to the deepest underworld of Greek mythology, the prison of the Titans. The Titans were, as we know, very, very big giants in Greek mythology. Not only ancient legends support the biblical text, but also record that the gods' offspring, the giants, shared the fate of their fathers. Most famous of all, the mythology of ancient Greek actually repeats the same universal stories as the older Eastern traditions. And accordingly, the Greek Titans may stand for both the Nephilim and Anunnaki. They were, as the Greek myth says, the offspring of Gaia, that is Earth, the Earth goddess or human women, and Uranus, a sky deity who stands for heavenly beings or gods. So who were the Nephilim? The Septuagint translates both the Hebrew Nephilim and Gibborim, mighty men or women of renown, in Genesis 6:4 as gigantes in Greek, or giants. Some scholars, like Michael Heiser, also think Nephilim comes from the Aramaic word Nephilia for giant. Biblical giants are also referred to as Anakim and Rephaim. Now, what's the difference between those? In spite of the flood, giants eventually made a comeback, and in the context, Nephilim were mostly antediluvian giants, whereas their descendants were already recorded after the flood as generations of Anakim and Rephaim. Although Genesis 6:4 does not describe the Nephilim as beings of great stature, Numbers 3:13 already gives such a narrative. After leaving Egypt, Israelites are approaching the Promised Land. However, Moses first sends 12 scouts who come back after 40 days with a report about their huge number, Numbers 13:32 to 33. The land through which we have gone to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are of great height. We saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who came from the Nephilim, and we seem to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seem to them. Now, was Gilgamesh a giant? Intriguingly, there are ancient sources suggesting that Gilgamesh was actually of gigantic stature, according to Farmer and Jarrell 2017. The Epic of Gilgamesh from Ugarit reveals in lines 34 to 36, he is the hero's size, 11 cubits was his height, 4 cubits the width of his chest, a triple cubit was his foot, and a reed length his legs. And accordingly, Gilgamesh would have been over 5 meters tall, that's over 15 feet in height. At this point, we should also take a closer look at Gilgamesh relief representing him grasping a lion. Usually an adult lion measures about 9 or 10 feet, while Gilgamesh embraces, he looks more like a kitty cat. Assuming that Gilgamesh was over 5 meters tall, that's 15 feet tall, and the depicted size of the lion seems more accurate. Also, the fragmentary books of giants found among the Apocrypha scrolls in the Quran enumerates Gilgamesh as one of the giants. Gilgamesh's divine origins were taken either after his mother, the goddess Ninsun, or his father. Although Lugalbanda, the king of Uruk, is believed to have been the father of Gilgamesh, according to Sumerian king lists, his true father was a spiritual being. As stated by the Book of Enoch, after the flood, a number of dead giants was doomed to eternal exile on earth as spiritual beings. Those wandering entities have desire for revenge on God and his creation for the destruction of their world. Hence it happened they possessed human beings. Some of those may have brought Gilgamesh to life as much as other creatures of their kind. Through the flood, according to the Apocrypha Book of Giants, not only giants were the offspring of fallen angels, but also animal-angelic hybrids. There was also a crossbreeding between animals themselves, such as beast-like creatures were giants' inferior comrades. Gilgamesh himself makes friends with Enkidu, a wild man, animal-human hybrid, who apparently looks like a minotaur. That is half man and half bull. The bull type is on top. Now, some entities of the antediluvian world made through the flood along with the corrupted genome, and how? There are several contingencies. One, the second incursion, spirit beings again got into sexual intercourse with women, and more giants were born, according to Alberino 2004 and Garris 2019. The Nephilim genes were passed down through Noah's daughter-in-laws. These wives of Ham, Shem, and Japheth were not descended from Noah, and thus potentially had Nephilim genes in them, according to Garris and Skiba and Alberino. 3. Necromancy, a genetic transmutation through the sorcery. 4. The exiles of Atlantis, a theory proposed by Timothy Alberino, 2018. Some forbidden entities escaped the deluge by different means. And this is exactly what was said by Thoth the Atlantean in the Emerald Tablets, that some Atlanteans did escape and they set up other cities throughout the world. The first thing they did was build pyramids. They had unbelievably advanced technology. Now, as the epic says, Gilgamesh himself meets Utnapishtim, a survivor of the Great Flood, whom the god Enlil saved from the waters and made immortal. And Gilgamesh desires immortality for himself, but eventually fails in his quest. Even if he has got divine origins, defeats Humbaba, Huwawa, the guardian of the cedar forest, and slays the heavenly bull, he is unable to become immortal like Utnapishtim, and in this context he can be seen as acting against the post-Diluvian order. Gilgamesh aka Nimrod. Similar attitude is expressed by another Mesopotamian king known as, from the Bible, Genesis 10, as Nimrod, whom other traditions also ascribe the construction of the Tower of Babel. Although the Bible calls him Nimrod, it may have actually been a nickname meaning such as a Hebrew word or rebel, or we shall rebel, according to Alberino 2018. Hence, Nimrod is believed to have rebelled against Yahweh by building this tower. Quote, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar. End quote. Post-flood resurrection. Irrespective of the true identity of Nimrod or Gilgamesh, it can be concluded that the ancient world just after the Great Flood may have been ruled by demi-divine gigantic beings, Gibborim, who originated from the Nephilim, the extremely intelligent but wicked angelic offspring. The latter built up the antediluvian empire with the help of their heavenly fathers. This is by Archaeological EU, and I'll leave a link below for you for this. Please leave your comments. Thank you. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.